Hey, I'm Jeff Gill, founder of Hip Hop Cares, also part of the St. John Center for Men as well as Up for Women and Children outreach team.
And I am your special host for today's bonus pop-up Take It From Tara. My buddy Jeff and I just decided, sit back and relax. We're going to be here for a while.
All right.
We just decided to get together and talk a little bit because he did a fabulous live cast last night. I was so impressed.
Thank you.
Don't be taking my job. He did a great job. After the big news of yesterday was the clearing of the Jefferson Jackson, or Camp Wayside as they call it, underpass clearing, and it was heartbreaking to watch. And you did a live cast about it last night and did a beautiful job summarizing a lot of the points. But you called me today and you said you just had some thoughts that you really needed to share. And I like that idea because I had some questions for you that I've been asked today after what happened yesterday with the camp clear out. So let's just start with a little summary about what you saw starting about 7 o'clock in the morning yesterday.
Well, when I first showed up down on Jefferson Street, there were 3 LMPD cruisers on site already. And before I went to start to interact with the folks that were camping, I spoke with an LMPD officer, basically just to get a rundown as to what their game plan was going to be, as far as what happens when somebody refuses to move. What do you plan on doing? Are you going to lock people up? Are you going to cite them? Are you going to physically remove them? What do you intend on doing? And they assured me that they did not have any intentions at all at locking anybody up, at citing anybody. They had high hopes that everything would move fairly smooth, which helped me in the sense of when I'm reminding people that we're on the clock right now. Here in about an hour, they're going to come through, and we got to get everybody moved. We got to get everything cleared out. If they were to respond in a way that let me know that they didn't intend on moving, I just wanted to know how to respond to them. Yeah. I only had a couple of people that got upset and angry. And it wasn't personal. They knew me, but they were upset with me. It wasn't with me, though. They were upset because they were being woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning and told that they're on the clock, pretty much. Yeah. And those 2 particular individuals that did get a little upset, they have issues. They have mental issues that they're working through. They have other issues. It's a multi-prong issue when we're talking about homelessness. Right. And we have to approach it in that sense. Right. I can't talk to one person in this tent in the same way that I speak to this person in the tent right next to it, because they respond differently. Well,
I can't talk to that lady with the kid as the way I talk to this guy with the dog.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You have to treat everyone as an individual.
That's exactly correct. So once I got that information from LMPD, I walked across the street and I started on one end and I went all the way down. Now, I will say that LMPD, before I showed up at 7:30 a.m., they had already went through to every individual tent and every single person that was sleeping out. They went to them and they let them know. So that was the first wave of, hey, you've got an hour and a half.
And let's just go back a little bit farther, Jeff. Okay. This was not a surprise visit. This was not like the Gestapo came storming in and cleared the barracks.
No, not at all.
This was something that was done on a routine of 21-day clearance notices.
Correct.
Over a period of weeks, and it was really more than 21 days because they kept having the signs taken down.
Correct.
And you talked about that last night.
Yes, and the fact that it was actually slated to go down last Friday.
Right.
But the weather wasn't exactly the best for us to be able to get people moved.
Right.
So the city recognized that.
That's good.
Eric Friedlander in particular.
Yes.
And they gave a few extra days.
Good.
Because the forecast said Monday's going to be a good day.
Yes.
So they allowed us that extra time to be able to figure things out. The communication between the city leaders, the city officials, and the outreach teams has been spot on. I mean,
That's
we
good.
couldn't ask for anything better.
I think that's something that you really wanted to clarify, because
Yes.
there's a lot of anger being expressed, particularly in social media right now.
Yes.
Of people saying it's terrible, it's despicable, what happened to our compassionate city, what's wrong with the mayor, what's wrong with Metro Council, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that's misplaced anger.
Right. Right. And it's almost like if you have a teenage child that's just going through that rebellion stage.
Yeah.
And, at some point, you have to do something to get things under control.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't care about your child. It's not that you've lost compassion as a parent.
Right.
It's just that you have to do something, or this is going to get way out of control. And to the point where then we're in a worse situation, because how many people had to die down on Jackson, Jefferson, and Preston before that happened?
And how many did?
That I know of, 5. That I know of.
Are these drug overdoses primarily?
Most of them, yes.
Because you told me that it had become, and we know for a fact that there are drug dealers on the corner outside the low barrier shelter.
Yes.
Who are, for some reason, not being arrested regularly, which is a question I have as to why.
Mm-hmm.
And that there was a tremendous amount of spice down there, and
Mm-hmm.
that people were using the 10-man tents as spice huts.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, and the biggest problem with the tents from an outreach perspective,
Right.
is that it made it a lot harder for us to do basic things like welfare checks.
Right.
Because a lot of my responsibility as an outreach person when I go down there isn't necessarily passing out sleeping bags and tents. They already have these things.
Yes.
It's to go down, it's to say, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
How's your day going? Do you need anything? Build a conversation, because today might be that day where they say, you know what, I'm tired of this. Where can I go to get help?
Yes.
And we can't ever lose sight of that, and we can't ever give up on that, because the second that we give up on somebody is the second that they want to get better.
And you talk about dealing hope,
Yes.
as opposed to dealing dope.
Right.
Which
right.
is the greatest gift. And you guys, you talked at the outreach on Sunday. You do the Hip Hop Cares outreach at First and Broadway every single Sunday at noon if you guys want to volunteer. You talked about love and respect, and that's been your mantra as
Yes.
long as I've known you, and when I knew of you and didn't know you. That love and respect has been preached over and over and over again, and not a religious connotation, not anything other than all you have to do is offer love and respect. And if you do nothing beyond that, that's enough.
Correct.
At this point.
Yes. And what you had captured as far as me speaking to people, I when I started, I didn't do that. But once it grew to a point where I felt an obligation. I have all of these people here who are struggling with
Yes.
different things, be it
Yes.
addiction, be it loneliness, be it sadness, be it feeling like they have no hope. I felt an obligation to just let them know why I was there,
Yeah.
why the volunteers were there, and why I felt like they were there.
Yeah.
I can't explain why we all show up on that block on
Right.
Sundays.
Right.
We all have different reasons. But at the end of the day, it's about love.
It is.
Because the food's going to go away. The clothes, all of that's going to go away. But the reason that I've continued to do that is I've had many of people come to me and say, that week when you said ... whatever it is, that really touched me.
That's good.
Thank you for saying that. So while my anxiety doesn't exactly work with me in the best ways when speaking to groups of people.
You'd never know that. You did a beautiful job.
Well, thank you. Because I try to put myself to the side.
Yeah.
It's not about me.
That's why you don't like to be in pictures.
Well,
But I made you be in that picture.
you did, and that's
You're a big part of it.
That's why a lot of the people that usually come down were like, "You're in the picture.
You're in the picture.
What
Oh my
is
God."
going on?"
Yeah, you wrote, I couldn't say no to Tara.
Right.
But you deserve a little bit of that recognition, Jeff.
Well,
Honestly.
I feel like what we do on Sundays down on Broadway is the furthest thing from about me.
Of course, that's true.
I like for the community, the people that show up and donate their Sundays. I want them to get that. I want them to see themselves and know that group of people, a lot of them that they didn't know before they shown up, they all have the same common goal, and that's to spread love. And I mean, some people that show up are Republicans, some that show up are Democrats, some show up are faith-based, some show up that aren't. They don't know it though.
That's right. We didn't talk about any of those things. We just talked about love and respect.
And then when you look back at it in retrospect and you're like, oh, wait a minute, they're a Republican, but I really liked them. So, you know, like we learn a lot about ourselves by losing ourselves in service to others. And that's why Broadway, the Sunday outreach down there, it's so important, because I'm personally out 7 days a week.
I know you are.
I'm out all the time.
Yep.
But I wanted to make sure that was something that the community can be a part of, and not have to go through a training, not have to jump through any hoops, not have to just show up.
Right.
Just show up with an open mind and a smile on your face.
Well, I'm going to do two things. First of all, we're going to go back to yesterday, but first I want to give you some feedback from people who are signing on.
Okay.
Carrie Altum is watching, Carol Kranzman, Cassie Simon's watching us from Washington, D.C., former Louisvillian.
Nice.
Mary Jo Steinmetz, Melanie Hope Armstrong, mayoral candidate Angela Leet.
Oh, nice.
Hi, Angela. Tony Salisbury. Brenda Ford says, God bless Jeff Gill
I love her.
and all outreach groups who are helping everyone. Thank you. TJ Smith is watching. Donna Hone, Mimi Wilson, our friend Maria Miles, Rocky Knight, famous DJ, watching, Gurina Faulkner, Russ Lemons, Andrea Jones, Linda Hillenbrand. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this little bonus pop-up, Take It From Tara with Jeff Gill of Hip Hop Cares. Also St. John's Center for Homeless Men. The outreach team just does amazing things. And what we were starting to talk about, and we kind of got off track just a little bit because I made him get off track. And that is yesterday when the camp clear took place at the Jefferson Jackson Street overpass. We were just trying to establish what the routine was and what the actual schedule was and the timeline, because there had been 21-day notices issued. It was not a surprise visit.
No.
The police, other first responders, Jeff, were all down there very early in the morning, and they were letting campers know that they were going to be moving and that stuff was going to have to come, you know, off the street one way or the other, and that they needed to be able to prepare themselves to pack up and get moved.
Right.
So take it from there. We're probably at about 7:30, 8 o'clock right now.
Yes. Okay. So I had went through and notified everybody that, hey, we've got an hour. If you have somewhere to go ahead and get everything packed up. And when you're ready, come let me know. We're going to pack you up in either my truck or Jamie's truck. He's a part of the outreach team as well.
Right.
And Daryl Glass was there, and Carrie Dorton and Tiny, all part of the St.
Tiny
John's.
Is like Madonna. She only has one name. Nobody needs to tell, but it's Tiny Markwell, who is also at St. John, who's the founder of the Forgotten Louisville.
Yes. An angel to so many people. But we were all there with one goal, and that's to get people wherever they wanted to go.
Right.
Most of the people knew where they wanted to go.
That's good.
And once we let them know, we're on the clock, we've got an hour, get everything packed up. When you're ready, we're going to load you up, and I'm going to take you.
Good.
And that's exactly what we did.
Yes.
And we moved a lot of people in a very short amount of time.
Tell me, how many do you think you got out of there, Jeff?
I personally moved about 11 people.
Okay.
And then I know Jamie moved probably about 6. I know Daryl was involved in moving a few. Paul with Exit Zero showed up shortly after 9 o'clock, I believe, and he moved a couple as well. It was definitely a collective effort. But kind of going back to the timeline, so we were getting people moved. We started with Jefferson Street because we knew that that's where the city was going to start.
Right.
So we got most of that cleared out, and then we started on Jackson. I realized that we were running out of time.
Right.
I realized that we weren't going to meet that 9 o'clock deadline, and they had the Bobcats ready, they had their crews ready, they had the trucks ready.
Yes.
I went to Eric Friedlander and I said, Eric, we're not going to be able to get this done in time. People are packed up. They're ready to go, but we don't have enough time to get these people moved if we stick to the 9 o'clock deadline. Can we get 30 minutes more? That's all that we need. He said, absolutely.
Let me just point something out to you folks who are watching in case you don't know this yet. These are volunteer outreach members and outreach team leaders and participants from some of the various shelters like St. John. These are not city employees per se. These are not people who are being hired. These are people who are volunteering their time or doing their jobs in the shelter system.
Correct.
To help move the people away from an area that's going to be cleared and relocate them. So I'm going to just say this because I think it's a point that is well taken. You just said you went to the city, you asked for an extension of time, and they gave it to you. But I think a lot of the people who are questioning what happened and don't understand what happened is, why are you guys responsible for this? How did you get made responsible for the moving of these individuals experiencing homelessness away from Jackson, Jefferson, to destinations unknown?
Great question. And the best answer that I can give you is we should be the people to do it because we've built the relationships with these folks. If you send city officials in that don't know their name, that don't know their situation, that don't understand homelessness, it can be volatile.
Right.
It can get dangerous.
Yep.
So
it's like ticketing for sleeping on the sidewalk.
Right.
That was so productive.
I kind of jokingly say this quite a bit, but all I really wanted to do was pass out some blankets and clothes.
Right.
When I started.
That's right.
That's all I really wanted to do. But once I started to have conversations with people and I started to understand a lot of the things that were underlying. Right. I mean, we see homelessness.
That's right.
We see it. But do we really understand it?
Did you experience it?
I did. Yeah. I did. Now, my experience of homelessness wasn't exactly the sleep in the woods or sleep on the sidewalk. My experience of homelessness was more of sleeping on tarp when it was cold to get a couple hours of sleep until they put me off the bus, or sleep in White Castle until they kicked me out, or McDonald's, or couch surf, and just kind of get whatever I could get, how I could get it.
Right.
At that point in my life, my pride wouldn't let me go to a shelter. My pride wouldn't let me go to one of the resources that would have allowed me to eat that day. And there are a lot of people that are like that.
Right.
And we have to understand that. We can't just say, well, they don't want it. Of course they want it.
Who would choose to do what they're doing?
Right. Nobody asks for the life of homelessness.
Right.
Nobody really wants that. Now, some people choose to sleep outside as opposed to going into a shelter, but they don't want to be without a home.
Well, and there's a lot of reasons for that too, and you and I have talked about it. You know, I work at Bridgehaven Mental Health Services, and we all know that people with voices in their head may not be able to stand the racket inside a shelter,
right,
as well as the racket that's going on in their skull.
Right.
And people with PTSD may not be able to go into a shelter. I mean, let's just say it for what it is. Shelter living is not luxurious.
No.
Shelter living can be dangerous, it can be extremely toxic, it can be very trying, and God knows they're doing a yeoman's job in the shelter system in this city, but it is not playtime.
No. And there's a schedule to it all.
Right.
I mean, folks have to, if you're in a shelter, you have to get up really early.
Yeah.
And you have to get out.
Right.
And then here's when I started at St. John's as part of the outreach team,
yes,
my eyes were wide open because I got an understanding of what the day for a lot of these folks are really like. You get up really early in the morning and you're told that you have to go. So you walk somewhere to get breakfast or coffee. And then you go to that place once you get whatever it is that you were getting, food, coffee, both, whatever it is, then they walk to a day shelter in most cases, or they go back to their camp.
Yeah.
And then when it's time for lunch, they walk to go somewhere to get lunch. Then when that's over, they walk back to the day shelter or they walk back to their camp. or they go fly a sign somewhere.
There's not a lot of obesity in the homeless population, I would imagine.
No.
Because they're all working really hard at getting what they need.
Yes, and there's a reason that when you look at someone that has been on the streets for a while, their hands tell a lot of the story.
Yeah.
Their feet tell a lot of the story.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for people to understand, but when you're under that type of pressure, no matter if it's raining, snowing, hot, cold, you have to get up and you have to walk if you want to eat. And then you have to go to the next place.
That's right.
Then you have to go to the next place. They don't really have a choice. If they want to survive, there's certain things that they have to do.
And they have to keep moving. So
when you come across somebody that's experiencing homelessness and their day has been full of this, it's been raining all day. I've been outside all day doing outreach while it was pouring down rain. And then I go home and I start to peel off my coat and I start to peel off my clothes. And it's like taking weight off of my back.
Yes.
They don't have that ability.
That's right.
They walk around with that weight all day long. So you ask, why do they have that look on their face?
Right.
Why did they respond that way to me? Why are they so angry? Wouldn't you be?
Yeah, no kidding.
You know, the stress, the pressure, the uncomfortability, the feeling like nobody really cares.
Right.
Nobody makes eye contact. People walk on the other side of the street just so they don't have to pass you on the sidewalk.
Right.
You know, there's this common misconception in the community, and I notice it more outside of the city limits than I do downtown.
Right.
Because I do a lot of outreach outside of the city limits as well.
You guys are all over the city.
Yes, because it's needed.
Right.
A lot of the folks in the community, they call the city. Well, there's a camp that popped up. Let's call the city. We got to get rid of them. I've got kids in my home. Okay, well, if you're afraid of them, who are trying to stay away from you as much as you're trying to stay away from them, then pay attention to what's going on in your neighborhood. Pay attention to the drug dealers that's selling drugs to these people, or your other neighbors. Pay attention to the unsupervised teenagers that are running amok in your neighborhood and just might steal something from you. I mean, and I'm not saying let's just hate everybody. No.
Right.
I'm trying to make it just to put it into understanding.
Yeah.
They're not as bad as you think.
Well, and I tell you, it's interesting, and I'm just going to keep popping in here because I want to keep mentioning people who are saying some pretty incredible things here, and it makes me feel good to know that not only are you watching, but you're commenting. Thank you for that. Nick Curcio is watching. Hey, Nick, long time no see. Kristen Heckel is watching. Debbie Hossman, Kevin Combs, thank you. Mimi Wilson says, maybe if you interviewed some of the homeless folks to give a face and a story to this crisis. I continue to hear people say that they are lazy criminals and addicts who don't want to change, which I know is BS. Anyway, this interview is great. Okay, well, let me tell you this. Go back to The Voice in November of last year and read the article that I wrote about Dogman and his dog Bish, which was a very close personal look at the life of someone who is experiencing homelessness. And Angie Fenton was, at that time, the publisher of The Voice, and still is actually, and was kind enough to give me the opportunity to write a 10-page article with a lot of great photos that my buddy John O'Haver took, showing what life is like in a camp. That's a really up close and personal. And I'll tell you something, I have interviewed a lot of individuals experiencing homelessness, but there's a reason why some of them don't want to go on camera. And one was last night, which was really interesting to me. I wanted to talk to a lady. She said, my granddaughter is on Facebook and we have the same voice. And she says, and I'm afraid that if I go on Facebook, she's going to recognize my voice, and I don't want her to know that I'm out here.
Right.
And then there are people who have had trouble with the law.
Right.
And there are people who have stalkers or who have people who have been vicious to them that they're trying to escape. So there are a lot of reasons people don't want to be interviewed. The ones who are, like Dogman is just out there.
Yes.
He just is like, I don't care.
Yep.
I'll say anything. I'll do it. He's dropped the F-bomb on my show more times
that does not
than
surprise
I have.
Yes. Yes.
But anyway, so there's a reason that we sometimes do not get a chance to interview folks who are homeless.
And to that point, and you're absolutely right. And That's why I'm very respectful of, I don't take pictures during serves.
That's right.
If I do, I make sure that they're strategic and just getting the volunteers.
And that's why I shot, when I was doing the live cast, I shot you speaking and the volunteers in the background. And last night when Leslie and I were down at one of the camps, which we don't identify by name and we don't identify visually because we really don't want people to know where they are. And interestingly, the Courier-Journal named a camp, which I thought was completely inappropriate. And even though it didn't give away the exact location, it's enough that it should not have been done. So I'm going to really encourage all my media partners and friends to be very careful in your reporting, because to report a camp by name or location is endangering the people who live there.
Yes. And that boils down to understanding.
Yes. Yes.
I've dealt with, when I first started Hip Hop Cares, I was totally against doing any type of media. I'm like, that's not what I do it for.
You are such a hip hopper too.
Yes. I didn't want that type of attention.
Right.
The reason I started doing media is I felt like, actually, this can tie into the statement that was made a moment ago about getting people that are actually experiencing it right now to speak up.
Yes.
When you hear me speak,
yes,
you hear them speak.
That's true. You give them a voice.
I listen to them.
Yep.
And everything that they give me, I turn into something.
Yes.
All of the concerns that they give me, I take to Barbara Sexton Smith.
God, she's amazing.
She is. And she's a champion for this community.
So is Bill Hollander.
Bill Hollander, Eric Friedlander. There's quite a few people in our city leadership that genuinely care.
And I'm going to say something here, just for the sake of saying it, because anybody who knows me knows what my political views are. But I do have friends who are Republican, and one of them is Angela Leet. And last year when she was running for mayor, she knew that I worked with a lot of you guys, and she asked me if I would be willing to do a sit-down listening session for her with some of our friends in the outreaches. And she listened, she processed, and she offered suggestions, and she had ideas, and I think she still does. And I'm very appreciative of that.
Yes.
In her, because she was a Metro Council member and a mayoral candidate, and she was listening. And I think that's something that far too many people who are in charge don't do.
Absolutely.
They don't listen. And we've got some really exceptional people who do listen, and Barbara and Bill and Eric and Angela.
And we as a community, we as citizens of this city, we have to hold ourselves responsible for that too.
Yes.
We have to understand that while I didn't vote for the same person that you voted for, we might disagree on some things, but I like to use the analogy as if we're sitting across from each other and I draw a 6 right here. To you, you see a 9.
Right.
Neither one of us are wrong.
That's right.
It's about perspective. And I respect the fact that you see a 9 and I see a 6, so we can move on now.
Yeah.
It's all about perspective.
That's lacking, unfortunately, in the world today, and it's lacking on social media, particularly in regards to our political situation in this country, and that's really sad. But I said this yesterday. I said, crisis at the border, ? We have crises in our city.
Yeah.
The crises in our city in homelessness, mental health, and substance use disorder far outstrip any crisis at the border to me.
Yeah.
Because it's in my backyard.
Right.
And one of the comments that was just made by one of my very good Republican friends, whom I love very much, is, thank you for these interviews and giving us links to help. We need more of this. I will continue to share.
Awesome.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Daniel Ellis, Mimi Wilson, Jeff, how did your situation reach the point of being homeless, if she may ask? And then the next question is, how did you get out of it? And when we're done with this, we'll go back to yesterday.
Yes. Okay, well, okay, so I was dealt quite a bit of trauma as a youth.
Okay.
Didn't know how to process it, didn't know. It's not that I had lack of support, because my mother was always there and she's always loved me. But me not knowing how to process certain things that happened to me while I was molested as a youth.
Yes.
Twice, by 2 different people. The first time I was really young, and the second time I was a little bit older and I thought it was normal.
Yes.
And then once I realized, I just had that feeling that, no, this isn't normal, no, it needs to stop,
Yes.
and it stopped. Then I started to be angry.
Yes.
Because it was, both were men.
Right.
So what that fostered into me was a lot of hatred.
Absolutely.
I was very angry. Everybody that was, if you were gay, you were the worst person in the world to me.
Right.
Because you were a child molester, in my opinion.
Yes.
And I fostered a lot of hate, a lot of anger, and I didn't know how to manage it. So what happened is, the older that I got, it turned into a lot of physicality. I got into a lot of fights. I started running with a lot of people who made me feel like I was secure.
Yeah.
I got into the gang life.
Wow.
And because I felt like, well, somebody cares about me right now.
Right.
And it wasn't until everything reached a point in that lifestyle where I realized that they only care about me when I'm useful.
That's right.
When I'm not useful anymore, it's you're out to the wolves.
Yeah.
So
Were you here in
I
Louisville?
was.
Okay.
I was. And I had reached a point with my mother in our relationship where I didn't want to go back. It's not that she never accepted me. I could have always went back to my mother's house.
Yes.
But she wasn't willing to let me bring my gun into her house.
Absolutely.
She didn't want me to bring my drugs into her house. She didn't want me to have the people that I was running with know where she lived at.
Absolutely.
So unless I was willing to give that up, I couldn't come there. So I chose to continue to do what I was doing. And that's what led me to where I was at. And what got me out of that was finding out that I was having a child. When I realized that I was having my firstborn, I said, you know what? It's not about me anymore.
Wow.
And I'm not going to be what my father was to me. I never met my father. And I knew what it was. I have had a stepfather for most of my life, but the resentment was always there.
Sure.
We never had a great relationship.
Sure.
And that kind of tied in with everything that happened as a young person, and going into, well, you're not my father. So, you know, I never really had a respect for him, and because I didn't, he didn't really know how to find a respect for me.
Sure.
And we didn't really know how to build a bond with each other.
Right.
So I didn't have a man to be like, this is how you be a man.
Yes.
I learned how to be a man by making mistakes, by bumping my head, by doing things that weren't right. I did a lot of things that I knew were wrong, but I justified by, well, I needed it.
Yes.
You know, I was hungry, so I stole from the store.
Right.
You know, I needed that coat, so I stole it from you.
Wow.
You know, there was a lot of justifications in my wrongdoings. It wasn't until I realized that all of the things that were happening to me were karma. That was me paying my price for all of the things that I justified. I had to pay the price for that. And I had to take it to the chin. I can't complain about these things that are happening to me because I kind of had it coming. And I had to convince myself that was the situation. Well, so my first child was born. Then about a year later, my second child was born. But I hadn't reached a point where I had forgiven myself. I had forgiven my abusers. I had forgiven my mother. I had forgiven my stepfather. I had forgiven all of the people that I considered a friend that had given up on me. I hadn't forgiven them yet.
Yeah.
While I was on the surface, I was better because I had a job, I had a home, I had a car, I had a family. I wasn't happy. I was miserable. And it's because I hadn't done what needed to be done to move on.
Right.
Well, when everything fell apart, I lost my job. I lost my home, and we ended up moving back into my mother's. I was in a situation where our relationship wasn't working. I knew that we were on the splits, and I felt like I was going to lose my children. I took a whole bottle of sleeping pills with zero intent on waking back up. I was done. I'd given up. I have no purpose. I'm not going to have my kids. What am I doing with my life? Nobody likes me. Nobody respects me. What am I doing with my life? So I took a whole bottle of sleeping pills and I went to sleep. Well, I woke up in the hospital covered in black chalk, and I was angry. I was scared. I was angry because why?
Somebody
God,
saved
why
you.
did you do this to me?
God.
I can't even kill myself right. What am I good for? You know, I had to go through that motion. And I was sad because I realized that I had nobody left at that point.
Right.
Everybody had given up on me, and I had to understand why. Because I had given up on me. So that long walk from university to where I was going allowed me an opportunity to reflect. And I said, you know what? I have to have a purpose. I have to, or I wouldn't be here right now.
Right.
So I don't know what that purpose is, but all I can do is try to be the best me that I can be. I'm going to forgive everybody that's ever done anything to me, and I'm going to reach out to all the people that I wronged, and I'm going to extend an olive branch and explain to them that I don't expect you to be my friend again. I don't expect you to do anything for me. I just want you to hear me say that I'm sorry. I just want you to understand that the person that I once was, I am no longer. I have changed. And I don't want you to take my word for it. Just pay attention.
You'll see it.
You will see it.
Yep.
That was about 7 years ago.
That's the essence of 12-step programs, Jeff.
Really?
And the essence of forgiveness. And self-forgiveness is one of the most important parts of that.
Yes. And I had to start shedding all of these layers of
Yes.
hate, a lot of layers of anger. And when I started to shed these layers of, well, I just hate gay people because they're molesters. No, some of the best people that I've met since I've shed that live a different lifestyle than I do. But it doesn't matter because they're a good person. So sexuality doesn't mean anything. If you're a good person, that's what means something. Sexuality, religious beliefs, political beliefs, that's not what we should define each other by.
You are truly one of the least judgmental people I've ever met.
Well, and it's probably
seriously.
It's probably because I used to be the most judgmental person that you would have ever met.
So you've done that whole 180.
Yes, and that's why I believe people can change.
Yes.
Because I was once that person.
Yep.
I was once that person that, no, don't talk to me. Get away from me. You know, I don't want to hear nothing. I don't know why you're talking about love and respect. You don't love me. You don't respect me. Well, that's why I like to reiterate to the people down on Broadway all the time that I stand before you and I tell you that I love you, but I want you to love you. Because if you don't love you, you'll never understand that I love you.
Preach, brother.
Yes.
Paul Taylor's watching. Hold your breath. Brenda Davison. Robin Ash. Kevin Harned. Hey, Kevin!
Hey, Kevin.
World's greatest weatherman, right there. Meteorologist extraordinaire, Kevin Harned of Wave 3. Let's see, who else is here? Mimi Wilson says, thank you. I get it. I needed this enlightening.
Thank you.
Damn. Brenda Ford says, so very true. Maria Miles says, you advocate and educate. Jenny First, thank you for watching. President David James, Administrative Executive Assistant, who does so much work for Metro Council. Carrie Altima says, so very true. Tara Bassett, our backyard is more important than the border. Linda Gillick is watching. Martha Bloom. Tom Boone. Mimi says, thank you for sharing, Jeff, and thank you for your commitment. Thank you very much for the information, and God bless you. Jeff, you're amazing. Your testimony is amazing.
Thank you.
God bless you, my brother. Paul Taylor says, I know that feeling. Christina Folsom is watching. Greg Penner, Brenda Ford again, Mimi, Tracy Sprouse, Glenn Hobbs. God, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in on a very special pop-up. Take it from Tara. Jeff and I decided to get together tonight to talk about what happened yesterday, and we've ended up talking about a lot more, which I think is really important, and that's why I like to let interviews just kind of flow in the direction they want to go.
Yeah.
Because the things that you are saying are so important for people to hear. And it's just about, it's about people changing and about the ability of someone to turn their life 180 degrees.
Yes.
And you went through what you went through, I went through what I went through, and the people that we are trying to help and that you are serving day in and day out, who are experiencing homelessness and mental health issues and substance abuse disorders, are very capable of doing the same thing.
Yes.
The problem is we go back now to yesterday.
Okay.
We're going to track back to yesterday because that was the day of the big camp clearing at Jefferson and Jackson Streets. There's a lot of anger because people don't understand that there was a city warning of plenty of times, several weeks, almost a month of warning.
More than a month.
That it was going to happen, yeah.
Yes.
That it was going to happen. And then in the morning of yesterday, April the 1st, it was a terrible April Fool's Day for people to have to be moved from the place that they had been living, but also very necessary. So you were given, at that point, from the morning check, wake up everybody, it's time to get packed and let's get going. The city's here, they've got the bulldozers, the sweeping trucks, everything ready to go. Got to get up and get out. You were moving people, you guys moved several dozen people within a very short period of time. And then the clearing started.
Yes.
Now, there was a lot of discussion about what was being cleared, and the anger that people were expressing was, well, the homeless outreaches bought those tents and those sleeping bags and those blankets. Why were those all thrown away? Why were those all bulldozed? Tell us why.
Well, 90% of the tents that were left out there were not in great shape. Okay. Most of them, the zippers were ripped. They had holes in them. They were
well used.
They were well used. And the reason they were well used is a lot of the empty tents that were left out there were being rented out by people that were staying in low barrier shelter. And this was confirmed to me by several people inside of that shelter because...
Wait a minute. So the guys who were living in the tents went inside, and then they decided to rent the tents that were still outside?
Well, not exactly.
No, okay.
So people that were staying inside the shelter would go outside during the day.
Okay.
And when they'd see people come up and, hey, you got a tent? Yeah, sure, here's a tent. Okay, they'll go across the street, they'll set it up, they'll go back inside, and they'll say, hey, anybody want to stay in this tent I got outside? Give me $5. Give me whatever. They'll barter that. Which again, that was the environment that was fostered down there.
Which is not good.
It's not good. And what happens when this person doesn't pay?
Right.
Then you have violence.
Yes.
90% of the violence that was happening in that area was because of debts owed.
See, now this is something that people who aren't there are not going to be able to figure out, because this is not something that's on the news. This is not something that's being, spread by word of mouth. This is something that only you guys would know. The root cause of the problem that was occurring that resulted in this area particularly being targeted for Camp Clear was a very dangerous and very unsanitary environment that resulted from what was going on with the drugs and the tent rentals and the smoking tents that were being created. All of those things are causes that resulted in those areas being cleared.
Correct. Yes. And a lot of folks that had very good intentions during the holidays flooded that area with everything.
Tons of stuff.
So word got out, and everybody in the city heard that all you got to do is go down there and you'll get anything that you want.
Right.
In excess, though.
And they did.
And they did. And they took them. And just to tell you a little story, one day I went down there and there was a guy in a wheelchair who was standing up behind his wheelchair, and he had his wheelchair full of stuff, sleeping bags, tents, gloves, hats, all with tags on them. And he was tying it down. And I said, what you got going on here? He was like, oh, I'm taking this stuff to Walmart. I was like, really?
You're returning it?
You're taking it back? He was like, this is the...
Talk about entrepreneurialism.
He said, this is the third trip that I've taken to Walmart with stuff.
God.
My initial reaction was, wow, like we give this stuff out and you're going to take it back? He said, well, let me explain this to you. When you have people showing up every hour on the hour, giving you tents and sleeping bags, what do you do with it? We don't have anywhere to store it. Yeah, we don't have anywhere to store it. So what do we do with it? So then that was a moment of clarity for me. It was like, you're right. I mean, what do you do with all this extra stuff that's brand new? Do you let it go to waste? Or do you make something of it because of the situation
That's
that you're in?
That's actually really smart.
Yeah. I mean, and you can't be mad at them for that.
No, and I think one of the things that I'm laughing in incredulity that this is the point that we're at. But this is why we've been talking forever since I first started doing live casts with you.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about what we don't want people to do to try to help, because help is not always helpful.
Right.
And that's why I always say, please let the professionals, who are the unpaid volunteers, please let the professionals serve the people who are experiencing homelessness, and you can contribute to them. And one of the ways that we can do that, very simply, and I wrote this last night, is that you guys all have created Amazon wish lists.
Yes.
Which enable people who are sitting at home to just boop, 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 place your order, boom, it goes straight to the outreach. You guys have it, you can distribute it, you can do with it what is necessary, and you can make sure that it is spread out all over the city, so that we don't have the guy in the wheelchair stacked up with his tagged sleeping bags going back to Walmart.
Right. And can I explain to you where the whole thing came from?
Yeah. And where's our water? I need a drink.
I know, right?
Yeah,
yes,
God,
I'm a little
I shouldn't say I need a drink, because I don't drink, but I definitely need some water.
So.
And by the way, are you warm enough?
I am. Yeah. I'm a little frail, so you might see me shaking a little bit.
Well, hang on a minute, because I'm going to go get my jacket.
Okay.
Because I'm freezing.
Okay, fair enough.
You go ahead and talk.
Okay.
I'm just going to go get a jacket here.
Okay, fair enough. So the Amazon wish list came about because when Hip Hop Cares started, I decided that I'm not going to file for any grants. I want to make sure that we eliminate all of the things that people might question. With my past, with me going through the things that I've been through, with certain things that have happened in my past, the last thing that I wanted to happen when Hip Hop Cares was created was for you to give me $20 for the cause and me go do the right thing with that.
Right.
But put in some overtime hours at work, get a little extra money, and go buy myself some new shoes. Mm-hmm. The day after you gave me $20 to go do right with, and I did right with it, but because you got on new shoes the day after I gave you that money. I didn't want to ever run into those issues.
Right.
So I said, money's going to be taken out. I want to prove, and everybody called me crazy. My mother said that this wouldn't work. Everybody said, no, you got to do things this way. I said, no, you don't. Where there's will, there's way. And I know that this can be done. It just takes community support.
Right.
So once, I'd say about 25 weeks into Hip Hop Cares, the community started to become involved, and people started to want to help. And they're like, well, how can I donate money? Well, I don't take money. And people would, well, what do you mean you don't take money?
Everybody takes money.
You're not going to take my money? I just want to help.
Right.
Well, no, I'm not going to take your money, but if you want to help, you can go buy some socks, you can go buy some gloves. Well, I can't exactly get there, or I'm in Michigan, so how do I help? Okay, so Erin, which is one of my wonderful volunteers who's been around.
I met that young woman down there the other day.
Yes, she's been around for a long time. I'd say about 2.5 years. She runs the Facebook page, and we were having a conversation, bouncing ideas off each other, which we frequently do. And we had talked about something that we had seen someone do in a different state. It was when the water crisis hit.
Yes.
There was an Amazon wish list for people anywhere to go on Amazon and buy water, and it's sent to them. And we're like, that's it. Yeah. Let's do that.
Yep.
So we started it, and it's been extremely successful. And I've encouraged other people to do it. Yep. And Erin, who does the Amazon wish list for us and our Facebook page, which she's probably going to be mad because I dropped her name because she
That's okay. We didn't give her last name.
Yeah. So
Erin, the social media maven.
Yes.
Is what she shall be called.
She also works with the Forgotten. She works with a couple of the other outreach groups, and it's funny that when it became successful, she called me one day and she was like, so how do you feel about me setting up one for the forgotten? I was like, what do you mean? Absolutely.
Go for it.
Do that.
We're all on the same team.
Yes, and it doesn't matter who this tent or sleeping bag came from.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It just matters that the person that needs it gets it.
That's right.
So the Amazon wish list came from an ideal of here's another way.
Right.
And it's been extremely successful, and I see it more and more. Other groups are starting to do it. Other people in the community that are doing things for the community are utilizing it, and I love that. I'm definitely not one of the people that are like, well, I said it first, so you should give me credit, or I did it first, so you should give me credit. No, it doesn't matter who did it first.
Well, and here's the deal. Every time I think about it, I hyperlink on my Facebook page the list of all of you guys that I know of and that you've told me about, each one of the outreaches and your individual names. So you can just go in, you can literally touch each one of those, and it will take you to that Facebook page. And then you can get to the Amazon wish list from the Facebook page.
Yes.
And order whatever your little heart desires. And right now, because of the move, Chad Kane, for instance, Keep Louisville Warm, posted tents and sleeping bags are really important right now.
Absolutely.
And we're still having cold weather.
Yes.
Which is bizarre because it's supposed to be like 70 tomorrow. No, but right now I'm freezing my ass off, frankly.
Yes.
It's cold, and people, it's going to get colder tonight, and people need warmth. And one of the things that is really, really hard for folks to understand is if a 3-person tent is good, then why isn't a 10-person tent better?
Well, it depends on the location.
Right.
It really does. It depends on where they're putting this.
Yeah.
On the sidewalk, a 10-person tent is a nightmare. That shouldn't happen. I know the guy very well that had the 10-person tent down on Jefferson Street. He's a great guy. When he first got it, he showed it to me, and I was like, that's a horrible idea. Please don't set that up right here.
Aww.
I was like, that is a tent that needs to go into a camp in the woods.
Right.
You setting that up here, number one, you're making yourself a target because you got the biggest tent and everybody's going to want to know what you got inside. And
blocking the sidewalk.
Yes, and that too. But, I mean, a 10-man tent is harder to heat up.
Yep.
It's harder to maintain.
Yep.
And it simply makes you a target. So in the right setting, where that gentleman moved to, it's perfect for where he moved to. So all is well right now.
That's really good. And we've got more people who are watching who've made some comments and have some questions. Glenn Hobbs, thanks. Maria Miles says, amen. Tracy Sproul says, thank you. Tesha Johnson, Terry French. Oh, French Kiss Productions. She's a DJ. You guys probably know each other.
Possibly.
You guys should get together. You can buy your beats, right? Isn't that one of Buy My Beats?
Buy My Beats. That's my production
that's
company.
your production company. So Deborah Humphrey, Mimi Wilson says absolutely. Brenda Ford says yes. Very true. Carrie Altima says most organizations have wish lists, some who don't, and some you can actually give cash to. Yes. Glenda Adkins is watching.
Hey, Glenda.
Hi, baby doll. David and Janet Hedrick, Hugh Fauché, Bryce Alford. Hi, Bryce Alford. Long time no see. And Marilyn McClendon of My Dog Eats First. Share this to your page, if you will. Take a look at it. Do a watch party. I know this is really a funny thing to ask you to do, but just do a watch party and see how many people will join your watch party to see what you've just experienced with this broadcast with Jeff Gill. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is to spread this information as far and wide as you can. And as the sun sets slowly into the west over Crescent Hill Reservoir, and and I'm thinking about this too, Jeff. Last night I was down in the camp with Leslie from My Dog Eats First, and it was a mess. More than it normally would be a mess because of the influx of new folks who were coming in from downtown. And there were piles of tarps that are used to line the ground, and there were piles that were tents that were waiting to be put up, and there were some piles of garbage that they're sweeping together to try to police their camps. And as I said, camps have a government.
Yes.
And people are surprised to hear that. that there are often mayors. I mean, Dogman's the mayor of every camp he ever goes to, right?
Yeah, he rules with an iron fist,
Yes,
so to speak.
yes. So what I'm thinking about is the fact that people, to learn and to understand what is going on in this whole crisis of homelessness, one of the best things that you can do is to participate.
Yes.
With the outreaches. Learn how they serve and learn how you can help them serve.
Yes. Or if you don't want to, if it's not your thing, if you're not comfortable with it, if your life journey hasn't put you on the course to being selfless, just keep your negative opinions to yourself. Don't tear other people down. Don't be one of the people that says, well, I used to be an addict and I quit, so I don't feel sorry for them because I quit, so they can quit too. Well, everybody's road to recovery is different. And not everybody will understand that. Sometimes it takes a little bit more wrapping around with love than other people. But going back to what I always go back to, it boils down to love and respect. I see your struggle, and I'm not judging you for your struggle. I might not even understand your struggle, but I see that you're struggling, and I respect you as a human being. You are not a piece of trash. You are not an outcast.
That's right.
You are not hopeless. I have not met one person doing outreach that was hopeless.
That's right.
Not one person. They might have felt like they were, but they just didn't realize how great they were yet. But we as outreach people, or we as a community, have to keep on reminding them how awesome they are. I was having a conversation yesterday with a young lady who's really, really, really having a hard time with her addiction right now.
Right.
She sits with her drugs and she cries. And she says, I know that I don't need to do this. I know that it's killing me. I want to get back to my kids. It's killing me that I'm not seeing my kids right now.
Wow.
And I hate myself every time I use. And then when I use and then I come back to, I hate myself even more, because how can I be so weak? And I told her, I said, you are worth it. She said, worth what? I said, worth whatever you want to be, worth wherever you want to go. You are worth love. You are worth respect. And I see it in you. So when you're ready to take that next step, you let me know and I'll get you there. I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning. You call me and I'm going to get you there. Or you call Tiny, or you call one of Daryl Glass. He's known for going out at all hours of the night in emergency situations, as most of us are.
You guys give out your personal cell phones to these folks, and you take their calls, and you go.
Yes.
You go.
Yes. When needed, yes, absolutely. Now, sometimes I'll get a call at 12:30 at night that says, hey, such and such is arguing with such and such, and I'm like, what do you want me to do? I can't handle everything. But just calm down, stay in your tent, just stay to yourself and avoid the conflict.
Yeah, stay out of it.
Maybe that's all they needed to hear.
Exactly.
They just needed to get it out to somebody.
They need to speak to a father figure.
Somebody they know cares.
Someone that they know cares. And a lot of people who are in the experience of homelessness at this point have been shut off from their families. Mm-hmm. As I said, the woman that I wanted to talk to last night was afraid her granddaughter would see her on Facebook, so she didn't want to go on camera. And it made me so sad, because I know, and this woman had also met a brother she hadn't seen in 15 years in a camp. Mm-hmm. So they were both in that homeless state, and it broke my freaking heart. And I'm sitting here thinking, as we've done an hour of conversation, and there is so much more to say.
Yes.
And the sun is setting.
Yes.
And we're freezing to death.
Yes.
But we can go home.
Yes. Yes.
And we could go to our cars and get our jackets.
That's right.
And we can sit here in the quiet and beauty of Crescent Hill with no garbage and no chaos and no drugs and no danger, and have a civil conversation about something that is so profoundly foreign to so many people just like you and me.
Yes.
And I consider you and I to be the fortunate ones.
Agreed.
Because we know and we are aware, you more so than, by far more so than I. You know, you said you have the chance to listen to them and then give them a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And going up one more generation, I have listened to you. And by virtue of this ability to do this on social media, you know, we can give them and you the voice.
Yes.
And I think that's such a blessing, and I'm so grateful that you allow me to participate with you in the spreading of this word, because I don't think we get enough information from just our normal news outlets. And this show gives people a chance to get in-depth information, and that's what I love about you, is your willingness to share in depth. And this was a huge conversation, Jeff.
It's important. You know, like I don't often tell my story because I don't want the sympathy.
I know.
It's not about sympathy.
And it's not about sympathy.
But it is important for me to tell my story,
yes,
because I want people to understand that it's never too late.
Right.
I had given up on me.
How old are you?
I'm 36.
Yeah, see, you're a baby.
I wish I felt that way.
You're a baby. But you know, you have a long life behind you.
Yes.
And a long, long life ahead of you.
Hopefully.
And you know, you have clear eyes, you have a clear voice, you have a huge heart, and you're doing so much good. And you, with all of your other teammates, mm-hmm, are working miracles in this city, in places that the city itself has not been able to do that.
Well, and
I'm not criticizing them.
No.
I'm just saying, you guys have worked miracles.
And it goes back to the point of, I mean, the city people have their job to do.
Right.
They have to do that job.
That's right, they do.
They don't have the time in most cases to do what we do. So we have to be that bridge. We as a community. I wasn't always an outreach leader. I didn't start as an outreach leader. I didn't start as an advocate. I didn't start as, you know, anybody special. I started as everybody else in this city. Somebody that just, people tell me all the time how much I've affected their life.
That's
by
right.
Some of the things that I've said, or
Yep.
some of the things that I've done or provided, be it folks on the streets and shelters, or volunteers, or city people who I've given some insight to.
Yep.
But I don't think anybody that I've encountered has benefited more from all of this than me, because I've learned more about myself through all of this than I would have ever learned about myself by not doing this.
I agree with you, and I'm going to tell you what some other folks have been saying. We've got Paul Taylor says, I'm back, hope to watch the whole interview. Yes, you can. Great interview, glad you're making this happen. Brenda said, when we get to watch the whole thing, yes, you can just go back to the other one that just posted and you can have a watch party. Tammy Cox says, keep up the great work you're doing. The messages you share are very important. Rebecca Mann, glad to have a list of real organizations that show where their donations go and how much it helps those in need. The compassion and commitment Jeff and these organizations show is heartwarming. Thanks to you. Rebecca says, dedicated. Brenda said, we need more angels. Mimi Wilson says, yes. Maria Miles, Cassie Simon. Mimi says, your testimony is hope. Your life is the example that words can't express. God bless you guys. God, I tell you guys, Marlon Gaines, if you would like to do this, go back to last night and listen to the live cast that Jeff did, which was magnificent.
Thank you.
Leslie Hansford did a great live cast at one of the camps last night that I was a part of. And go back and listen to the hour that we've just done and share it.
Please.
And sorry it ended prematurely, but you know, we had a little glitch, hitch in the giddy up, as they say. We're going to take off, but we're always going to be here, and we encourage you to keep an eye on the different outreaches that are out working. Hip Hop Cares, the Forgotten Louisville, and the rest, all that list of all of the people who are out doing this work, truly the work of God, whatever you consider God to be, every single day, in every single way, day and night. Please give them your support. And I say this all the time, instead of giving to one particular mission that you might be most familiar with, give to the boots on the ground who are out scrounging and who are out working every single day to serve individuals who are living outside. That's just me. I'm just suggesting that. There are a lot of other great organizations in the city. But these guys are the ones that I have just the ultimate respect for and great love.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you. Can I say one more thing?
You can say whatever you want. I'm going to walk over here so I can actually turn off the camera after you finish saying this one more thing. And let me say one more thing, too.
Sure.
Tomorrow night, I don't know if people are aware of the fact that very often LGBTQ youth are thrown out of their homes because they're gay. Mm-hmm. Speaking of people that, you know, are your former adversaries and are now some of your best friends, kids who are gay are often disenfranchised because of that. Mm-hmm. And Jason Ashley Gardner, who is a wonderful friend, and I are going to get together with another member of the board of the Sweet Evening Breeze. Mm-hmm. My friends are developing this new shelter for LGBTQ youth, which will be opening this year. Mm-hmm. And tomorrow at 4 o'clock, we're going to preview that and talk a little bit about it and its purpose and the wonder of it. And I'm really excited about it. So I'm going to let Jeff close while I go over here and give you that money shot, Jeff, that you deserve in your UK jacket.
Right.
I'm so excited for you and your cats.
Thank you. In closing, I'd just like to say that not only with the issue with the camp being cleared out, if there's anything, any social issues, if there's anything that touches your soul and gets you worked up, please do research. Please understand why you're upset. Please understand where you need to go with this passion for whatever it is that touches your heart. Moving in the wrong direction only delays progress and change. So stay focused, stay positive, treat each other with respect and love, and wherever you go, take love and respect with you. Thank you.